Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, guys, in case you missed it, we did this video back on the 3rd. It only just came into my mind because something came up in my feed where they were talking about exactly this. And I was thinking, well, geez, a couple of the numbers they mentioned are wrong. And it's like, this is detailed. Here you go. Yeah. So this was a Patreon only. And we want to thank our newest Patreons.
We do. We want to say a huge thank you to you guys. We want to say thanks to Michelle, Peter, and Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. You keep us going. Again, you can join Patreon for as little as $1 a month. When you do pay in advance, you save 10%. It works out to like 2.9 cents a day. Again, we do appreciate you guys. So first thing I wanted to mention is this polar vortex that's dropping. It is going to bring some cold weather to much of the U.S. Very cold. And as we're looking at it, I was looking at Friday. This is this Saturday coming up. As you can see, these are temps. This is not wind chill. These are temps. Oh, brr. And then by Sunday, it's sinking in. And you get to Monday, and it feels, again, just what I had said now about 10 days ago. That, is this going to be another incident that we saw in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and some other areas with unusual temperatures that literally cost a lot of lives? They really did. And it was, I think, an understated event. And, this is the same sort of thing happening, perhaps maybe not as intense, and let's hope so. But as you could see, when we're looking at these temps, 13 degrees San Antonio, 4 degrees in Dallas, -8 actual temp in Oklahoma City. I mean, sure, you're used to the weather to a degree in Wyoming, Dakotas, even Nebraska and Iowa. You usually see 22 below. Not so much Texas and Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas. It could seriously be life-threatening. Hangs around Tuesday as well, as we can see, and then is starting to make its way a little bit more east by Wednesday. So just be aware of it and have backup to your backup when it comes to plans and power.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget your outside pets. They're definitely not used to this, especially in that area. So if you have straw or hay or something you can break out for them, any type of insulation, don't forget about your water. I'm just saying this because these areas really are not accustomed to it. And the animals outside, we can't forget about them. They need a little bit of help. And I do think if you have old styrofoam coolers, whatever, open them up, put those around kennels. Just do what you can for those outdoor babies. Yeah,
and again, we view our pets as not pets but family. That's just the way we view them. I would never leave them out in the cold. I mean, never. That's just us.
If we had goats, it would be a problem.
It really would be bad. It would be pretty bad. But I mean, I made our bed from scratch, and it was just like a woodworking project for me, and I had to disassemble it as it weighed probably close to 1,000 pounds, maybe about 750. And then as we moved, I had to reassemble it. I reassembled it a little differently, and now we basically have bunk beds, and the dogs have the bottom bunk bed. They literally have their own mattress. And that's the way they like it. But hey, that's the way we treat them because, again, we know that they love us and depend on us.
But some animals, they really are happy outside, and that's okay.
Yeah, those that are happy and prefer to be outside and can handle the cold. Yeah. So Shika Nuclear Power Plant was hit by about a 10-foot tsunami wave. This was after that 7.6 quake that hit Japan. Now, thankfully, again, in Japan, they are used to quakes, and they build accordingly. Probably some of the best construction on the planet to resist quakes you will find in Japan. But still, a 10-foot tsunami wave, and this could happen on a regular basis. Obviously, we are heading into new territory as we go deeper into the 2020s. You're going to see a lot of things. And mega quakes, I think, are on the list. And so thankfully, no nuclear catastrophe, but it begs the question of do we really need another Fukushima? No. Again, the power sources we use on this planet are not optimal, and they're not even necessary. And not that I understand the alternatives per se, but I know there's viable alternatives. Absolutely. In fact, I was going to include it in this one, but I think we'll do a separate video talking about, again, frequency and, about some possibilities that are truly clean energy, just a totally different type of energy. And the governments know this. It's just, it would take away from the power structure, it would take away from their ability to control humans, and that's why we don't have it. This is not good. In Grindavik, Iceland, a man is missing after falling into a crack in the ground. Don't forget, that's still an ongoing thing right now with a series of quakes going on, volcanic activity. Iceland, again, as so many islands are, it's all volcanic activity, and it's part of the natural cycle. And Cindy was talking about that. When we get to another article, we'll go into just how Mother Earth, even though it might seem like she's not going to be able to cleanse herself from this mess, she will. She absolutely will.
Well, she can. I know we have a lot of plastic everywhere. You can find plastic everywhere probably. I think I've seen articles in the Himalayan mountains, but let's not forget, even though they are pieces of plastic, they still came from this earth at some level. And at a certain degree, when something gets really hot, well, it kind of gets baked down to its original place, or it gets cooked down to something that is more usable. So she has plans as far as getting herself cleaned up.
She does. And here we see Elon retweeting this tweet from Gail Afar, where it says illegal migrants are welcome, U.S. citizens are not, one of many centers in New York that your tax dollars are financing. Absolutely. But when Elon says this, we watch, because again, Elon, you think he's a big thing now, wait till after the war. He is going to be looked to much more after the war, because right now you can see he's taking the dissenting side. He's pointing out the system. And this is how the system keeps us still under the system when we think we overcame the system. Like, think World War II and, the Allied soldiers going into Berlin, and, you have the Russians coming in on one side, us coming in on the other side. And you think, okay, Hitler's gone, he committed suicide. No, well, actually, he's vacationing over in Argentina. But irregardless, you think, hallelujah, the White Hats won. Really? All that happens is things change. They shift gears. The U.S. becomes the policing force, because of all the manufacturing in this country, which they have removed. Where did it mostly go? To China. Now it's already moving even out of China into other countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, et cetera, et cetera. This is a never-ending thing that the control system does. So just when we think, okay, maybe we beat the control system, no, because all the control system does is put a new mask on after taking an old mask off.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And I think about once every, 4 months probably, they get people worked up and they start talking about certain arrests. There might be arrests made. Haven't seen that for years and years. They keep talking about it year after year after year, but I haven't seen one person be brought to justice for anything when they're up in those other echelons and in those high places where they're above the law, or they can just pay to have the laws rewritten for them, or they can just pay to have somebody look the other way.
When we see the dissolution of the UN, and we see the dissolution of the few, and the dissolution of all these different structures, I'm still going to be looking with a skeptical eye, just because that's me, and this is what the system has done time and time again. So we can't, again, we can't expect anything new when the same cast of characters is always in place. When you have, again, you have presidents, you could trace every single president but one back to European royalty. It's all the connections. It's just an illusion. You go from kings and queens in some countries to prime ministers and presidents, but the reality is the control structure stays the same. We have to think beyond capitalism. We have to think beyond socialism and communism, and certainly beyond fascism and any sort of dictatorship. We can't trust any aspect of control that they've used in the past. So in my own mind, I think, again, breaking things down into smaller units and allowing things to go organically would be a better way to go. As there is this push, again, for one world governance, and that's basically a one world dictatorship, which they envision. No more illusion of freedom. Again, doesn't really matter which flavor of puppet you prefer. It's when we get to the point where, again, there is, I guess you could view it as anarchy, because one of the definitions of anarchy is simply there is no central governance. And that would be a good thing, because we don't all agree on things. And people, again, in some areas of the world don't want to live at all like people in other areas of the world. For instance, you take people that go and travel to Costa Rica, and they're hit by the impression that these people don't want to work. Well, that's because they don't value it. If you take people from the northeast of the U.S. and you come down to Mississippi and to Alabama and to some other areas more in the country, you might find that you're going to have a hard time getting things done because people enjoy their time is spent fishing and things like that, camping. They value things differently, as Cindy is absolutely cracking up.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's so true. I mean, they would much rather go out fishing and have a beer, and that's them, and they're in a place where they can do that, and that's where they've positioned themselves, and it just tickles me. I'm not sure why. I'm just totally laughing, but the idea that we've had to have some work done in this beautiful farmhouse with so much character. And I think it probably took about, I don't know, it took months to get the electric upgraded and the water done because, those who could do it, well, they were out fishing.
Yeah, again, we bought a house with no central heat, with no working hot water, no hot water heater, no working stove. And as I was pointing out, the cracks in the floor in multiple places showing like 3 different layers. Cindy's just saying it's character. It's character. And that's the way you look at it, because again, we don't want to go deep into debt, and any debt is basically slavery. So that's, one of the things that we have to realize. This is a debt slavery system. It's a debt slavery system. We're not out of the system, even though we know this. We're not out of the system. If we could have tolerated living in the 19-foot camper, we could have been out of the system. But no, it wasn't really tolerable, and it wasn't enabling us to do all the things we want to do. So, we decided, again, to pick your poison. And Iran has confirmed the capture of American-controlled oil tanker. Iran's Navy has confirmed the capture of American-controlled oil tanker St. Nicholas. Yes, St. Nicholas in the Sea of Oman. St. Nicholas in the Sea of Oman. Oman. Citing enforcement of acts of law, the reportedly Greek-owned ship was seized last year through U.S. sanctions against Iran. Iran is now returning the favor, and in the most turbulent times between the U.S. and them, this is no coincidence, that Iran is openly telling the U.S. that Iran is no longer a joke. You have them building all sorts of drone and missiles for Russia. It's, again, the power has shifted. And if you were to look at, again, the expenditures militarily of what's going on, you almost have to say it seems like things have happened overnight. And the reality is they could tell you whatever they want with the numbers and the money. It's all an illusion. Digital numbers can be wiped clean at any time. Anybody needs, if you're part of the system, you need an extra digit, you'll get it. It's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. It's a big fat lie. This is the reality. So their books don't have to balance. Where did trillions of dollars go from the Pentagon? They're not really telling us, even if they do or don't know. This is how it is such an illusion to keep the humans occupied. Meanwhile, the UK threatens Yemen with bombing as they're sending another warship there. Speaking hours after British destroyers shot down a swarm of Houthi drones and missiles over the busy shipping lane, Shaps declared, "This cannot continue and we won't allow it to continue. We cannot have a situation where a major sea route, major ability to move goods around the world is being cut off by terrorists and thugs, and therefore we must act." But who really are the terrorists and the thugs? Well, South Africa is pointing in one direction, but before we go and talk about that, this again is Papua New Guinea. At least 15 people lost their lives in riots during the protests. State of emergency was declared. Unprecedented level of conflict in the region. 1,000 soldiers prepared for intervention. Again, what is the bigger purpose here? The bigger purpose is getting, as Cindy has said so many times, and maybe most of it's been in private, but I know we've shared it. They want us to be used to seeing the military controlling things in public, and that's what you have in Ecuador. And this is what we're going to have in the U.S. as well. And, we still haven't seen any changes from when we had gotten back a year ago, December. So, now 13 months ago, we got that there will be conflict in the U.S. in 2024 towards the summer. And we were, thinking along the lines of that Red Dawn type of scenario or something of that like that will have Russian and Chinese troops on U.S. soil, which we already really do because we have so many that snuck over in with the other migrants per se. Well, when the U.S. does get split up into smaller groups, it's going to probably, again, be a case where we'll see martial law and basically a military dictatorship in place. This is what we are getting used to on a global scale, and 2024 is going to be kind of all about that, as you see Army members patrolling the streets, stopping and searching vehicles, checking drivers' documents. Remember the FBI, CIA connections to ISIS and to all these other groups, Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. It's, again, the same thing happens in other countries. There are no really clean, good governments that any of us know of anyway on this planet that are really, truly dedicated to their civilians, because the power structure just swoops in and takes and buys out, or whatever way they have to do it, they take control.
And when I watch this, everyone is getting their, making sure that they have their papers, making sure that they have everything in order. It just reminds me of all of those like World War II movies. Exactly. Where everyone's in line and you have to check your documentation, and how tense it is because people are just trying to live. They're just trying to do something for themselves. They just want something different. Say, like, some of their documentation might not be perfect, and they're standing there stressed, and they're wondering if they're going to get caught. And if they do get caught, what happens. It's never a happy ending. And people are desperately wanting out of that situation so bad. They're willing to risk their lives and falsify documentation to get something different, maybe not just for themselves, but maybe make a path for their children. So it tells you like how bad it is there. And I'm watching this happen, and they really are normalizing these soldiers in the streets. And, if you're the one with the big gun, you have the biggest equalizer, and everyone else has to follow suit, or there's consequences. And I think now is a time, we still have time to make sure that we're solid here, because we still have certain freedoms, and we can still do a lot. I was watching this video here while Mike was talking, and there was a guy, looked like he was forced to take down his, take from his car window that black stuff, so that that privacy stuff, so that people can't see in. I mean, that's a control of such a high degree. So you can't have anything in your window. People have to be able to see you, and they have to see what you're doing. And these are not bad people. I mean, these people are just like me and you. They're just living their lives, going about doing what they're doing. And I still think we have time. It's definitely not too late for us over here.
Here is a map again of South America. So we have Ecuador right here. Right now, Venezuela, in case you didn't see it, is taking over like half or more of Guyana, its neighbor, right to the east of it. So you have UK and US militarily watching this, coming down to watch this, because there's natural resources found just off the coast over here. And so Venezuela is claiming it. And this is actually something that happened over 100 years ago, too. And there was a treaty from which the current borders were arranged. Yet, when you look at the bigger picture, what else did you have going on? You had Brazil and Peru mobilizing their militaries because watching this. Now, Brazil and Venezuela are on the same team. They're along with China, Russia, and the rest of the BRICS nations. Panama is right here. Now, this is part of the migrant path that's been going on up to, obviously, the Mexican-U.S. border. And so many nationals, over 100,000 Chinese nationals of military age have made their way on up through this area. Now, Panama, interestingly enough, is expected to take a loss in population according to the Deagle numbers. Interestingly enough, Ecuador is as well, over 1 million people. There's not a lot of countries that lose population in Latin America, but Ecuador is one of them, and Venezuela is expected to gain population. So taking over half of Guyana right there is going to add population. I think almost 1 million people live in this area. That would be added to Venezuela. I think they gain, if I remember right, 3 million, so others from other means. But again, Venezuela, Brazil, part of BRICS, really, economically. Argentina was going to, until the crazy man got elected or selected. And so you had Argentina, Colombia, and Ecuador talking about working out a military alliance, or Argentina and Colombia supporting Ecuador militarily. So, again, these occurrences that we see going on, whether it's Venezuela deciding all of a sudden out of the blue, now's the time to take over half of this country. And so, you get preparations militarily from the U.S., the UK, Brazil, Peru. And then now this assault by the cartels in Ecuador, which is getting Colombia ready and Argentina ready. This is preparation for World War III. This is what they are doing.
It is. And, I'm looking at the map and I'm thinking, gosh, they start children out to learn these things really early by giving them coloring pages and stuff and remembering and getting them to memorize this stuff. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, why is it so important, really, that children need to memorize it? And it just kind of hit me that the controllers need children to see this, so that ultimately one day, if they are called to fight, they're going to understand it through the controllers' eyes. Not that the controllers necessarily need anything different. It's hard for me to translate what I'm getting across, but it's very important that controllers do their indoctrination. It has a deep purpose when I think our children should be out learning how to garden, learning how to build buildings, learning how to farm, but they're raising soldiers. And thank God for Mike. I mean, he has the ability to learn this stuff really fast and help other people understand it, which is great for me because I did horrible in school. I mean, oh my gosh, school was traumatizing for me because I would take a test to get it back. It was all like red check marks. I just did horrible. But there is a bigger purpose for having children learn things at such a young age, and it saddens me.
So as we see, Ecuador will refuse to use Russian military equipment and exchange it for U.S. arms. Metal scrap. Yeah, they've decided to exchange old military vehicles, Russian and Ukrainian made, as announced by the country's president, the new president again. He looks like Juan Guaidó. Remember that guy, Juan Guaidó, that they were trying to, I think that was his name, try to puppet in Venezuela. and get rid of what's his name, the current president there. He strikes me exactly like that, for you guys that remember that. So that's my take on what's going on there. Now, over in Poland, again, out of the blue, Poland had been pretty damn peaceful when you get down to it. It seemed like it was kind of getting away from a lot of the chaos. Well, here you go. All of a sudden, you have a newly elected government. It really kind of surprises people. And now you got the people openly protesting the government big time, as you see over 100,000 people here. And, this is Jim Ferguson. And, there's been times when I've wanted to unsubscribe from him because of his inflammatory nature, because he's so obviously part of this political structure. Former parliamentary candidate with Brexit Party. Businessman, entrepreneur, again. But, here he's saying the Polish government could be toppled. They absolutely could be toppled again. This is the part of the chaos. It's going to be never ending in 2024. And I think the maps will be changing in 2025. Absolutely. But then they are always changing. As you see here, God, honor, and homeland slogans resonate. Think about this. Everybody pretty much in this world is brought up in different systems, at least the illusion of different systems, and we're brought up with the concept that it's perfectly good. In fact, it's something that's very much condoned to be patriotic to your country. But what does that do? It creates certainly competition with others. If you start to think, well, I'm so proud of my country. I live in the best country in the world. Everybody thinks they live in the best country in the world. They're so proud of it. It separates us. It's such an easy, obvious thing to see. And yet people miss that point.
And it separates us at such a deep level because it's just really ingrained in the system of how much better your area is than theirs. And they do it with all kinds of things too. I mean, look at our belief system. Like every belief system is saying, well, ours is better than yours. It sets people up to really, I could never say that my belief system is better than another person's. I just don't stand there. I stand with my belief system is best for me. And I don't look over or tower over anyone thinking that that is better at all. Yet with every belief system you see, they're touting that this is the one and only way. And if you're not going to do things this way, well, you're just going to burn in hell forever. And to me, that's just not nice.
This is part of, what has always drawn me going back to being a little kid. A little kid. I would look at the maps and just be so enthralled with them. Here you see Poland and Lithuania from 1569. Here we are. Okay, so are we proud to be Polish for our Polish family out there? Well, you recognize, and I know, we have people that really understand this history. The map is always changing, and boy, Poland is one of them. It's constantly changing. So, you might have been born in a particular city, and in 1900, you might have been in Poland. 1800, you might not have been. 1700, you might have been something totally different. You could have been born in Prussia. Are you patriotic about being born in Prussia? Wait a minute. Prussia doesn't exist anymore. Well, not as a nation state. This is in Austria and Hungary. All this always changes. It always changes. This is what they use as a tool. 1815 to 1914. Again, it's just a crazy, divisive tool. Little Lithuania was a mighty empire at one point in time. It's always changing. The maps are always changing. And guess what? We have constant warfare. The two go hand in hand. The indoctrination into believing that we are, should be proud and think that we all live in the greatest country in the world. It's just so simplistic. But it works. It really works. And it's worked nonstop. And this is why there's never been a year that there is no war somewhere.
Just like feeding the ego works. I mean, it gets people thinking, well, I'm better than you, and that better than you is so separating. It's so separating. I mean, everyone should be their best selves, but not set themselves up to be better than anyone else. And that's just something that we're not taught. And to me, I'm like Mike. I mean, it's so simple. Everyone should be proud of who they are, and they should build upon those gifts that they have. But they have so many ads and they have so many products out there, and it's all advertised based on fear. Like, if you don't buy this, oh, you're going to be wrinkly and ugly, so you better buy it. So they make a lot of money off of ego as well.
So South Africa is presenting its case against Israel for genocide here at the International Court of Justice, and this is one of the things we were alluding to earlier. Why are we seeing this going on right now? Because they need to get the entirety of the world against Israel and the U.S. and NATO. Coincidentally, when you look to the Deagle numbers, that's who suffers. And again, they originally were saying with those Deagle numbers that it's just migration. Yet, what do we have? We have 179 countries in the Deagle numbers, and you only have 23 countries that gain population. The rest lose or stay the same. And the amount that's gained is like 52 million. The amount that's lost is like 794 million. That means there's like almost 750 million people that are not on the planet come 2025. That's only explained, really, especially when you look at it at which countries suffer the most, through global war of a massive kind that we have never seen in our lives. 1 liter of bottled water contains 250,000 invisible plastic particles. This is why we all have plastic in our poop. And yet Mama Nature will wipe this all clean at one point in time, as there's so many prophecies of new land rising, old land going to the bottom of the sea. Yet you could look to it, and Edgar Casey, for all his gifts, he said Japan would be in the sea by now. It hasn't happened. Same thing with California, it hasn't happened. But hang on tight, 2024 I think is the year that we will see some great quakes.
We'll see some very interesting things. Things are definitely going to change in 2024, and I see it as a very rumbly and heated year.
And this is showing the World's Fair in Chicago. Look at how magnificent these buildings are. They're, I guess, grand is what comes to mind. There's such style and attention to detail. And yeah, we have modern skyscrapers, much larger, etc. But when we look at the way things were built in the past, they were built with this kind of more of a artistic expression than what we have now, in my humble opinion.
So today we're going to...
And, this is Nicola 3 here that's bringing this forward. And Cultivate, Elevate is the TikTok channel. There's some fabulous channels out there. Now, we don't do anything on TikTok. I like deeper dives, but at the same time, I think we will be trying to do some shorts, more and more shorts for those, because I am also, I play everything at time and a half because I want to gobble up as much information as possible in our research. But again, these buildings are made of granite and stone, and we're told that they were, basically destroyed in a horrible fire. Yeah, the question is this some sort of reset? And that's the word people are starting to use more and more. Reset. The Great Chicago Fire, there were sightings of classic saucer-shaped UFOs. And I remember doing videos on that as well. The real controllers have remained hidden. And, here you have an object above a cruise ship. Now, it looks like somebody in a backpack, but the captain basically says, no, it went into the water and it down into the water, disappeared in the water. And I've been on a cruise ship as well and saw something go straight into the water with 3 other people, and we all just kind of looked at each other with our jaws dropped after there was a strange light that seemed to be bobbing, and the seas weren't rough, and I was wondering, is it a ship? And then it just disappeared into the water. But it was, believe it or not, right around the Bermuda Triangle too, which is an interesting thing in its own right. And there's actual Sanskrit, Hindu references to the Bermuda Triangle. It's fascinating, man. There is so much to share. Did you guys get your yoga in today? This pup did.
This pup is very serious about his yoga, teaching the baby well. Mama's teaching puppy well. They're working together. You don't always need another human to do other human things with. Our pups can teach us, they can teach us a lot about being humane.
Yes, prioritize yourself as much as you can and work to get yourself out of the system as much as possible. I understand it's hard. I was somebody, my parents, they were extremely conservative in many ways. They never took a chance financially with anything, and they lived paycheck to paycheck their entire lives, never owned a house. Never owned a single property, never owned more than one car, and at that they were always minimal cars. So they didn't really prioritize material things, but yet we never wanted, which is a beautiful thing. And there was always love and peace abound. They never argued. My parents never argued. They were very, very peaceful. And I tried to emulate that, although I think I do get wound up sometimes, especially when it comes to the system. But like last night, finished the night with an hour of Qigong, and then this morning, instead of jumping straight into work, we took care of ourselves and utilized oxygen, exercise therapy, and did mantras first, and then some resistance exercise, because you want to, especially when you get to be on the other side of 35-40, you want to make sure you don't lose your muscle mass. You want to keep the bones strong. Exercise is a must. A mind-body breath routine, whether it's yoga, whether it's Qigong, Tai Chi, or just simply one of our favorite things, hiking in nature. I mean, some of my favorite times were simply Cindy and I out there in the woods. And I got to say, New Mexico was probably my favorite place to hike.
It was a lot of fun.
It was wonderful. So just wanted to share that with you guys. As always, we love you guys. Stay safe. Much